other ways for you to engage with the town, with our department particularly, we have a website called greatergroton.com. A lot of the initiatives and projects and plans that we're currently working on are listed on there. I do have to make a quick plug for Groton 2035, our Plan of Conservation and Development, which is our 10-year plan. We're in the process of developing that plan right now with our Planning and Zoning Commission. There's a lot of information on that plan, as well as our Climate Action Plan, which we're just starting up, and some other larger projects that we're doing. Before I go on more, I think most folks have been here before, but restrooms in the back, exits to the side, behind you, and out multiple doors in case of any type of an emergency. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to hand things over to Dave Prescott from our planning office, and he's going to talk about our speaker tonight, some of the breakout boards that we have, and yeah, really thank you all for coming. Also, if you didn't sign in, please do that. Put a sticky dot on the board in the front, just so we know where everybody here is from. And after the event, or kind of before we conclude, we'll do a little question and answer session. We always do those. If folks grabbed an index card, pink or blue, write your questions on those during the event. Prior to the Q&A, we'll collect those so we can kind of get through the question part a little bit faster. So again, thanks for coming. I'll hand it over to Dave.
All right, thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to see you all here. My name is Dave Prescott. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the land use planners here. I'm also the floodplain manager for the town. So I think it's a little ironic that on our ride over here it was actually raining. But that seems how things are happening. And then the fact that we're in the middle of peak hurricane season, and we have Hurricane Erin right off the coast right now, coming up the coast, and then potentially another one right after that. So this is very timely for us all to be here and stuff. It doesn't matter where you live, your property can flood. And we have a great speaker here tonight, and to talk a little bit more about flooding, and also about thinking about flood insurance. How many of you actually live in the flood zone that you know of? How's that? If you don't know, you're going to find out. So we have some great breakout sessions. We have a great presentation by Diane Ivkovic. She'll be coming up next. Then we'll have some breakout sessions, and then we'll do questions at the end. Other than that, I hope you all enjoy. I hope you learn a little bit something tonight. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Diane. She is the State National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator from Connecticut Deep, and here to talk a little bit about flooding. All right, thank you.
Hey, guys. Well, thanks for coming out tonight. I'm really happy Groton is doing this. I know it's for all the Grotons, as I call them. Noang, Groton, Long Point, city and town. I am Diane Ivkovic. I have a weird name, I agree. Dave did awesome. I hold that against no one. And we did our little rain dance tonight, so it is raining, so I was thinking of that tonight as I came here too. It hasn't rained in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is. I work for so just so you know who I am, I work for the Department of Environmental Protection at the state. My salary is paid for with a grant from FEMA. And my role basically is, I'm really an environmental analyst, but I have done this for 25 years. It's a fake title, State National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator. It's not a real state title. There is one of us in every state, so FEMA pays for at least somebody in every state in the union to basically help towns administer the National Flood Insurance Program. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but just so you know who I was. So I am not a FEMA employee. I'm kind of their indentured servant, as I like to say. So we'll just start with flooding in general. And most people know this, that flooding is the most common natural disaster in the United States, but also in the whole world, really. Is also the most costly. In the United States, it's usually 200 to 500 billion annually. It just depends on, the storms we get. This is something actually, FEMA's been promoting these 2 slogans coming up, and also the governor's office, really. Everyone is located in the floodplain. Doesn't matter even if you're on a mountain. If it rains, and it can flood. So it's just the amount of rain that you're gonna get. So everyone is susceptible to this. Nope, So as Dave said too, it's also hurricane season. Hurricane season started in June 1 to November 30th. In Connecticut, prime time is really right now. August to October is kind of when we start seeing it because of the water gets really warm. And like Dave said, we've got Aaron out there. It's going to be a miss. I look at everyone and I go, whoo, thank God. But just for perspective, the last actual direct hit Connecticut had of a hurricane was Hurricane Gloria in '85. Somebody said Bob actually hit Rhode Island, although Bob was pretty close. That was in '91, so it was close. We had Superstorm Sandy in October of 2012 and Irene in August of 2011. And I just want to put this one to bed. I hear this a lot. People say, well, I survived Sandy and Irene, so I'm good, right? Well, reminder, Sandy hit New Jersey. It took a hook, hit New Jersey, and we just got a glancing blow. None of those storms were 100-year storms in Connecticut. So that's just some perspective. Just because you survived those two storms really doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. And so here's just a couple pictures. This was Old Saybrook. I believe this was Sandy. Same thing, this one, East Haven, Cozy Beach. Just a couple pictures. So this one I bring up, and you probably guys have heard this on the news the last few days if you were watching NBC 30, Fox already had it, about all the flooding we had a year ago in western Connecticut in the Naugatuck Valley. There's a lot of specials. If you haven't seen them, you can go online and watch them. They're fascinating, but you probably remember this. On August 18th, a year ago, so it's just that time, Oxford, Monroe, Southbury, Newtown, that area, they actually got 12 to 16 inches of rain in like 6 to 8 hours, and that's astronomical. So these were 100-year events, but definitely more 500 and 1,000-year events. The reason for that is something called, what people either call precipitation bombs or rain bombs, or training. So it just means like it parks over you and dumps, doesn't move. Training is also just, think of a train. It's just coming at you, it doesn't move, it's stagnant, and it's just dumping water on you. And that's what happened there. It was kind of unplanned, unforecast, set up, and then that's what happens. So the point is, this can happen anywhere. And it has happened on this side of the state a number of years ago in little pockets. So that's what we're seeing now, is a lot of like just pockets of these rain bombs. Is kind of like, it's not really a technical term, but it's what people call them. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about what the National Flood Insurance Program is, or the NFIP. So actually it was a program started in 1968 by Congress. The reason it was started was because in the 50s and the 60s, and this happened in Connecticut too, there was a lot of hurricanes across the country. We had like Connie and Diane in the 50s. That was actually kind of the flood of record upstate, like in the Torrington area, in that area of the state. But what they saw was that there wasn't really a program that addressed this. A lot of people didn't have insurance. Insurance companies don't want to write flood insurance like regular insurance companies because they can't make any money out of it. So I want you to think if you ever had a teenage driver. So you have a small group of people who are very risky. So you pay a lot of money for that insurance. It's the same thing with flood. You have a small group of people, they all live in the same spot, and they're very risky. So it isn't spread, the risk isn't spread like, say, fire insurance is spread over everybody. So that's what happened. So there was no insurance at that time. Congress saw that, so they developed this program, and it has 3 components. Flood maps, so FEMA makes flood maps, and in Connecticut, all towns have them. Flood regulations, which it's in the state building code, and it's also in local zoning. We're not going to talk about regulations tonight too much. And then insurance. So if you participate in this program, if a town participates, then insurance is available to residents. So you say, well, what about in Connecticut? We are actually one of the few states where every town participates, believe it or not. Most towns in Connecticut joined in the 70s and 80s. Again, we have 177 participating communities, so that includes like boroughs, like Noank, like Groton Long Point, because they have separate zoning. So if you have separate zoning, that's how you participate, okay? All our towns have maps and regulations that regulate construction, and all property owners can buy insurance if you either are located inside and outside the floodplain. It doesn't matter. There's definitely a myth that says the only people who can buy flood insurance are those in the floodplain, and that's not true. Okay, so that's step one. One of the reasons Connecticut it has full coverage, and you might think it's weird, we're a small state. Our real estate is very valuable. Flood insurance is needed for mortgages. If you live in the floodplain, the bank is going to make you get flood insurance as a federal law. So if you weren't able to get this federal thing, you'd have to go outside to, say, Lloyd's of London and get it. So it hinders real estate. And again, the towns here also need it for disaster assistance. If you want to get federal disaster assistance, a town has to participate in this program. So the state, a number of agencies definitely try to make sure the towns, we get all our money and they all kind of go the same way, herd the cats, that we're all in this program so nobody's left out. That makes sense. But Groton's all covered, so you're all good. Little cartoon. This is, you hear this a lot, you know. We just had Sandy, so I can go to sleep now for 100 years, and it's my kid's problem, and I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna retire, move somewhere else, or whatever. That's not how this works. So just so you know what the 100-year flood means, all it is statistical probability. So everybody loves Powerball, or something where the balls come up, the lottery. So that's what it is. So it's the probability that that ball comes up, right? You know, same thing with a flood. It's when they make these maps, they're engineered maps. They take data from a certain point backward. They feed it into a model, and that's all it is. It's a statistical probability, okay? On the bottom there, it says base flood elevation, BFE. That's just the height of the 100-year flood in any certain location. And that can change. It changes from if you're down at the coast versus upstate, those numbers can change. It's based on like your ground elevation and then how much water they think is gonna come around you, okay? So now we're just gonna do a little bit on maps. Oh, let me get my thing. So like I said, FEMA makes flood maps and studies. They are called flood insurance rate maps or firm maps. They are actually a paper map. So the little picture there, it is like a Z-fold map. You remember the old road map where you have the Z-fold map from AAA, where you get the map? They actually are that, and the town has them, right? You guys have them? Who has them in this town? Planning? Planning has them. All right, okay. They are actually a paper map. We're going to show you electronic ones. So they exist in 2 states. You can have a paper map, and usually they're at the building department, the zoning department, sometimes the engineering department, whatever. You can print them up. The map is a translation of a study. So that little booklet up there is something called a flood insurance study. So again, these are all based on engineering, like I said. They're not based on soils like wetlands maps. Actual surveyors go out, they make measurements, they look at the watershed, they look at data from gauges from the USGS, the U.S. Geological Service, from NOAA. They have buoys in Long Island Sound that collect data constantly. And they go from a certain point backward. And they take all that data, they put it into a model, and it makes a map, okay? It does not include climate change or sea level rise, these maps. That's a whole separate deal. But again, they're used by government officials for projects, by lenders, again, insurance agents to write insurance, lenders to see if you're in the floodplain, surveyors, engineers, architects. Engineers use them the data in them to size culverts or stormwater systems, and realtors, and just regular people who want to know, right? So where can you get a flood map? So you can go on to the FEMA's Map Service Center. If you just Google Map Service Center, you find it. You don't have to write this down. There is a little, right on the first page, and this is what the page looks like. So there's a box where it says address. Type in your address, you hit search, and then we're going to show you what it looks like in a second. So I'll give you 2 examples. So this is a coastal map. It's not Connecticut. I just pulled one from somewhere. The top of the map, you're in the ocean. So you're looking down like a bird. And you see the houses, you could see the underneath. And then you're coming, if you're going down, say you were walking out of the ocean, you're coming down this map, okay? Anything that's blue is a 100-year floodplain, all right? So say you typed in an address, and it'll give you that little red pin, see in the middle, that's somebody's address, okay? The brown or the tan areas, that's a 500-year floodplain, okay? And then again, there's base flood elevations on the map. And I'm going to tell you something else in a minute. So this is a riverine floodplain. So the river channel is that floodway in the middle. See the red kind of lined area? You can see at the bottom of the map, see the areas outside the floodplains. They're kind of a gray, and you see like buildings. And again, blue is the 100-year floodplain. The tan is a 500-year floodplain. So here's the good news. In these breakout sessions, they're going to hand out little cards to you, and you can put your address, and the nice people on the sides, you can go and they'll sit down with you, you give them the address, and they'll tell you what flood zone you're in and what that means, okay? So I'm not going to go too further into this, but so that way you can get personal information, if that's good, okay? So again, little card. Dave will tell you. You can tell more about the little card. Okay. So now we'll talk about flood insurance a little bit. This is a problem constantly. It happened, again, last year in August in Western Connecticut with those floods. People think they have coverage and they don't. So a homeowner's policy will cover wind and fire, okay? It does not have flood coverage. You have to have a separate flood insurance policy to cover flooding. So this is just a general rule. Water that, and I'm going to read it, and you can read it behind me. Water that falls from the sky that damages your home is covered by homeowners insurance. So I want you to think of this. Wind rips your roof off, water gets in from the sky. That's homeowner's policy, okay? If you have a broken pipe or sewer backflow, usually a homeowner's policy will cover it if you have that type of coverage. All right, so now if water flows over the ground from a water course, a river, the ocean, whatever, that has to be covered by a separate flood insurance policy, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So what does FEMA define as a flood? So again, here we go again, same thing. Overland flow, a general condition where 2 acres or 2 properties are, again, overland flow, inland flow, tidal flow. That's what it covers. It also does things like mud flow, subsidence, but that's really other parts of the country. We don't really get a lot of that here. But just so you understand the difference of what your coverage is. So a lot of people think, again, I have coverage. So again, if you don't know it, I would sit down with your agent and say, what exactly do I have if you're interested in this, and make sure you're comfortable with that. All right, so purchasing flood insurance. Again, I'm going to say it again. Both any property owner, if you're located inside or outside a mapped floodplain, can buy insurance in Connecticut. Every town can. If you're in the mapped zone, if you're in that blue, if you were in the tan, if you were in the gray, you can always get insurance. The only difference is going to be the cost based on risk, and we'll get to that in a second. Also on this little card, this little QR code, and it's on my little slide here, it says, quote, FEMA just came out with a new quoting tool. You could just do it yourself online. You don't have to talk to anybody. If you just want to get an idea, it takes like 10 minutes. You plug in some data, and it'll give you a rough idea, maybe about, what it'll cost you. If you wanted to find an agent and, go in depth more, again, floodsmart.gov. Flood insurance is actually sold. It is a federal policy by the federal government, but it's managed by normal insurance companies like your State Farms, your Nationwides, your Farmers. They act as like middlemen or a servicing agent for the federal government. So you can go to your local agent if you have a homeowner's policy. They probably would sell you a flood insurance policy. But you can go onto this website and find out which companies offer that coverage, okay? There is a 30-day waiting period unless it's connected with a mortgage. So if you're closing on a house and you need it as a part of that mortgage, you get it that day. But if you didn't, you have to wait 30 days. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because people years ago were buying it at the beginning of hurricane season, and then they would play the roulette wheel and then cancel it. So To stop that now, you have to have once you get it, it takes 30 days, so you can't just buy it the day before like Erin hits, okay? And then also they make you keep it for a year. So you can't cancel it midway unless you sold the house or something like that, okay? There are also private flood insurance companies, a few of them, who have entered the market. Again, remember, this is a money-making thing. Most of them don't do it because it's hard. But they also cherry pick people. They want people who are inland. They want people with no claims. They want people with no disaster history. They're out there, and sometimes inland people can actually save a little money with a private policy. So I just tell you that. This is a long list of stuff, but not that you need to know everything about this, but this is how FEMA looks at rating, a premium calculation. These are the things they take into account. A lot of it is your distance to water, again, your foundation type, prior claims, your building occupancy. The last one, cost to rebuild, just means if you have a small house, you're going to pay less than, say, a mansion. That's all that means. So they're factoring that in. This is actually recent. It's only in the last number of years that this occurred. Before, it was a lot simpler. Again, they've tried to make it a little bit more like a normal insurance company would look at risk, as opposed to to factor in a bunch of things. But this is just what they use. What is covered? So if you really want to know every little nitty-gritty thing, I would Google FEMA Summary of Coverage. It's a document. It's in the corner. That's what the cover looks like. And it'll tell you every little nitty-gritty thing that a policy covers. But I can give you a general gist. So there are two types of coverage. Building, covers the building, and then contents. So it's just like it sounds. So you could read what's up there. Building is covering things that stay with the building and that are structural to the building. Things like electrical, plumbing, foundation, your furnace, permanent carpeting or cabinets, built-in appliances, things like that. Contents is more like your stuff, removable items, clothing, furniture, electronics, freezers and the food in them. Again, if you have a mortgage, all you need is the building coverage. You can say, I don't want contents coverage, but then again, you have no coverage. But that's a way to cheapen up a policy. The other thing too is in basements, this is a big complaint. If you have an older home with like a finished basement, like the old rec room type of thing, they're not going to cover like you to replace that. They're just going to do the building stuff, the furnace and all that stuff. They're not going to give you money to redo that rec room, if that makes any sense, okay? But that's why I'm saying look at this summary of coverage. So what is not covered? For contents, again, you can read it all. Animals, vehicles, because that's auto insurance. Some of these are kind of hilarious. Aircrafts, boats, very valuable things like furs and stuff like that. Things that are, say, in a carport that can float away. So what is it, both building and contents, what wouldn't they cover? Damage caused by mildew or moisture that could have been prevented, living expenses, temporary housing. It doesn't give any living expenses, okay? And that happens a lot. If you get a flood and you get displaced, you got to go somewhere, okay? Again, if it's a business financial, like business interruption, that's a separate type of insurance. It doesn't cover anything outside the building. Lawns, landscaping, shrubs, septic systems, wells, fences. This is a big one. We hear a lot. Seawalls and docks. FEMA doesn't cover any of that. Patios, decks, hot tubs, swimming pools, tennis courts, and bridges. And I say bridges meaning a driveway bridge. We have a lot of those where it's not a municipal bridge. It's a little bridge going over a stream, and it's like part of your driveway. I've had a number of these over the years where these poor people, insurance doesn't cover any of that. Don't buy a house like that. That's all I could say. I've had nightmare stories with poor people with these things. They're a fortune to replace. But anyway, it's anything in the yard, basically. They're not paying for any of that, okay, just so you understand that. So what are the limits? For a residential property, they can go up to $250 for the building and $100 for contents. I admit those I think are low, and I think they've talked about raising those limits. Non-residential, it's 500 for building and also another 500 for content. So non-residential is like a commercial building, an industrial building, things like that, okay? If you own a business. They also sell it for condos, so a association can buy it for the structure, and then people can buy stuff for their individual units. And renters can also buy contents insurance, like for their stuff, and if the owner has it for the building, because that's the structure, because they don't own that part, if that makes sense. This is just a quick, again, we are now heading into hurricane season, and this is actually my last slide. Just little things you guys can do, if you so desire, to reduce flooding in general. Again, some of these are obvious, and you probably do them already. Cleaning out drains and gutters. Again, regrading or pitching water away from the house. I am a good one. Even I do it. I know this is uncomfortable, but I do this. I put on, when it's raining hard, not like now, but raining hard, I put on my raincoat and everything, and I walk around my house. And is any water ponding up anywhere? Is water pitching in weird ways? Your yard kind of changes sometimes over time. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's as simple as there's just water pitched wrong, and you just have to do something about it. Elevating or protecting utility equipment. If you know you have water coming in at times, and you're going to fix your furnace, or you're going to put in a new electrical box, think about just raising it up a little bit, putting it on a pad, sticking it on the ceiling in the basement, whatever. Again, if you need sandbags, generator for a sump pump, you can go full-blown, elevate your structure, full mitigation. If you're interested in that, there is a FEMA publication, that's the name of it, Homeowner's Guide to Retrofitting. It goes through different scenarios. Some of it is like the things I've described, of like pitching your yard and stuff like that, and other ones are full-blown crazy. This website, reducefloodrisk.org, it's actually from the Association of State Floodplain Managers. It is definitely geared, it's a great website, and it's geared to just regular people, kind of what I'm saying here, like things you could do to, check off the box to see, make sure you've done everything around your house, okay? Another one is ready.gov floods. Again, government website, but it's giving you ideas of like what you should be checking and doing to kind of prepare yourself for hurricane season and just flooding in general. And again, flood insurance. I am not an insurance agent. I don't make any money off of insurance, but again, with what happened last August to Western Connecticut, we definitely want to get the word out to say where it rains, it can flood. Anybody can have this bucket of water dumped on them. It's just Russian roulette with a town. You guys went unscathed. Last year, it was the poor Oxfords and Monroes. So it's just something to think about, okay? And there's me. I'll be here, but if you want to get me separately and call me and whatever, we can do that too. And here's Dave.
All right, thank you very much, Diane. All right, so now for the next exciting session, next section. One other thing I want to say too, so you've heard these 100-year storms and 500-year storms. FEMA is actually starting to move away from that, just because people say, oh, well, I had a 100-year storm, I'm fine for the next 100 years. They're actually calling it the 1% annual chance now. So that means at any given year, if you live in the 100-year floodplain, or basically there's a 1% chance. If you live in the 500, there's a 0.2% chance every single year. So they're starting to move away from that. So next up, we have some breakout sessions. We should also say that we as staff are also not insurance agents. We don't get anything off of this. We're not going to do your insurance quote or anything like that. But what we are going to do is we have OPDS staff on both sides over here at computers. You can go over to them. We'll take your address. We'll show exactly where you are on the FEMA maps if you're in a flood zone. And then again, on the back, there's actually a little QR code that you can take a picture with your phone, and it'll actually bring you directly to FEMA's quoting page where you can actually take a look at that. Besides that, we have our colleagues from the Connecticut NEAR, Katie and Erin, who are here to talk about the launch of a really cool app called MyCoast. So go over there and definitely check it out. It's a way to actually be able to document flooding and also storm damage. So definitely go check that out over there. Where's the other one? In the back corner over there by Shannon and Alexis, there's a poster about where you see some flooding. There's an interactive board. You can actually put stickers on there. And the last thing in the very back is something that John talked about, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. We're just about to launch publicly our climate action plan known as Climate Ready Groton, and we've already have some great quick polls that we would love input on. We will have an event coming up next month, and I'll talk about that at the very end. So we're going to take some time. You can go around, check out the different sections, sessions there, and then we'll come back at the end. Again, like John mentioned, if you have those little index cards, any questions that you have, please write them down and then hand them to one of the staff, and at the very end, we'll discuss. All right? All right, thank you. And obviously, there's plenty of food left. I should mention one other thing. If you do have questions for building or zoning officials, we have several people here. So we have Tim from the town, we have Scott, who's by the door from the city, we have Tom from Groton Long Point. So if you have further questions after finding out if you're in a flood zone, you can talk to one of them as well. All right, thank you. All right, so we have a small handful of questions, but these are good ones.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're good. All right, so first question. I'm a renter. Does my renter's insurance cover flooding? The answer is no. So if you are renting a property, obviously you don't have to worry about the building coverage because you don't own it. But if you have any concern about losing your contents inside there, I think Diane was talking about up to $100,000 worth of coverage. You really should get flood insurance if you think that this is if you're worried about the risk. You should explore flood insurance as a renter.
I would call whoever you have and ask them that point blank. Is there flood coverage in this somehow? Just to be double checked, but probably it's probably like theft or fire, that kind of stuff. It's probably not flood. And especially if you're a business, you want it for like your inventory. Say you're a tenant, you don't own the building. You want it for your contents,
All right, this is a good one too. So around Pequannock Bridge and Midway Oval, what is the largest flood threat? Fort Hill Brook or the ocean? My answer for that is it depends. If we have a massive amount of rain, if we have a rain bomb event, then rain could cause some issues there. If we do have a massive coastal storm, it is within the part of Midway Oval is within the AE zone, so that is part of the 1% or the 100-year storm, and the rest of it's within the 500 years. So there is definitely a chance of having a major. If we get a direct hit like Gloria, there definitely is a chance that water will come up there and flood that area. So it depends.
Is it a bridge too?
It's not no, it's not. There is a bridge, yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's where the river comes up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
bridges are notorious obstructions to flow, so, yeah.
but that area has a big population of homes. So since oh my God, sorry, I just can't see anymore. Since most of the flood insurance is federal but administered by local agents, is pricing dictated by the feds or the local agent?
We were just talking about this. So if you let me go over here. No, it is not by the local agent. There was a gentleman here, I don't know where he went. Was it you? Oh, I'm sorry. Was that you? Who had a thing out of Florida, right? And he's like, I don't want Florida. If it's a federal policy, all the rates and rating tools and premiums are set by the federal government. So if you buy a policy and have all the parameters the same, the deductible, the coverage, and you buy it from Nationwide or Farmers or whoever, the premium should be exactly the same because it is not dictated by the local agent. They are basically at a computer in a database that's a federal database with all those parameters I had up there. They put it in and it spits it out. They cannot alter anything based on different areas of the country. Okay, if that makes sense? So again, garbage in, garbage out. If you start fooling with the criteria, like you tell them different things, yeah, you're gonna get different numbers, like the deductibles, But if you play apple to apple to apple, the matter of company, and it's a federal policy, it should always be the same, okay? If that makes any sense. So it doesn't matter if it comes out of Florida or wherever.
This one's also for you, because you know the latest. How often are flood maps updated? And when was the last big update?
Okay.
I know.
I got this
Yeah, I'll
one.
let you get it.
Oh, this is a good one. So remember, this program started in the 60s. It started in HUD. It was a HUD program, and then it was, because there was no FEMA, then it was moved to FEMA. So all our towns joined in the 70s and 80s. So when they did that, a map was made for them. So if you look at the very first one, sometimes they say HUD on them, which is a little scary. Back in the day, each town got its own map. Greenwich got one, you got one, Noank got one, da-da-da-da. They would update them periodically. It's done by, congressional money. So if money is appropriated and then it goes into a pot and then it's divvied up by region, we are in Region 1, that's New England, then there's 2, 3, whatever the heck they are. And then that's divvied into the states, if that makes sense. In the old days, they used to do it by population, so the coastal maps, like you guys would get maps quicker than say, I don't know, like the corners. The corners of the Connecticut are still kind of raw. They have maps, but they're still their old maps. They're like from the 80s. Then FEMA went to county-wide maps. Now they're on to watershed maps. So right now, FEMA is remapping in Connecticut. Here we go. Saugatuck watershed, that's in Fairfield County, the Housatonic, the lower Connecticut, meaning the Connecticut River Valley, because we're the lower part from up in New England. Farmington, they did Pawcatuck Wood a few years ago, right when the pandemic hit. It was like April of that year, so that you got some new maps.
Yep.
Chautauqua and Thames are in process. Who else? Quinnipiac was done a number of years ago. What else? And they are looking at coastal again, because they did coastal right about where Sandy was, 2008.
13.
Somewhere in there?
Right around Sandy, yeah.
Coastal maps, which are separate from the riverine studies, because they do it differently. But those might be coming in the next number. But again, it's all based on federal money, so, it's anybody's guess right now if you get any money out of them. What we have, we keep now in the region, and these are the ones that are in process at various stages. So Saugatuck is ending, Housatonic is starting. So, and that's a lot of what I do all day, is keeping track of this, because one big part of this is, this affects the towns, and when there's a map change, then they have to update their regulations. You need to update your regulations to stay in this program, or you get kicked out. So this is this is how the interaction goes. So all you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but the whole point of my job, the way I look at it, is to make sure our towns stay in this program so people get insurance and people get their disaster money, because the disaster money goes to people, but it more importantly goes to town projects, infrastructure, like blown out bridges and all that kind of stuff. That last flood last August in Western Connecticut, I think we pulled in 15 million. Again, state roads, town roads, culverts blown apart. It's astronomical. So that's the whole behind the scenes of this that you guys will never see, because it's boring. But it's like herding cats. My job is to herd all the cats, all the towns, to make sure we stay in this and we make sure we get all our money. If that makes any sense. Would you say?
Yep.
All right, there you go.
And yes, and so we did review the inland FEMA maps and sent on our comments, which I don't think we had any at this point. But what we're really interested in is the updates to the coastal ones, the coastal maps. But again, they were supposed to be here last year, and
They keep saying they're going to start, but I don't, again.
we don't know.
If you get money out of Congress.
Right. So, all right, couple more. Is underground stream water that enters my home covered by flood insurance?
I'm going to say no. It's like is you talking like seepage? Is that what you mean? Or do you have an actual river running under your house?
My next door neighbor has the river, and when it's dry most of the time,
Yeah.
we had a large 10-inch inches of rain back in 2010 here.
Yeah.
And the net flood filled up, and then that entered into cracks of the foundations and stuff for next door neighbors.
Say again, well, was it outside where you would slosh around in it?
No, it's
Okay.
all underground.
Okay. Again, I think what you need is a kind of like a policy, like a rider on seepage or basement. Flood wouldn't cover that. Like I said, it's got to be overland flow, tidal, and it's got to be two properties where you look outside and you see water. You know what I mean? Not that there's something not out there for you, because there probably is, but it's probably not this.
And this this is a similar question. So
Okay.
does flood insurance cover a flooded basement from groundwater intrusion? Or is my homeowner's enough? So,
I mean, you can call an agent and ask them.
Yeah.
But again, they're going to say, read the definition of the flood I had up there. Do you feel you fit that definition? I don't think you do.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all right,
it's good.
it's
It's a
cool.
good question.
That's-
Ground and water.
Yeah, yep.
I think it's more like high water table or seepage is more like what you're looking for, okay? But they'll sell you that. Someone will sell you that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to call to find out. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much for attending tonight. We hope you learned a little something, learned if you're in the flood zone or not, and what you can do if to find out a little bit more about flood insurance. Well, I just wanted to announce one other event we have coming up. So as I mentioned before, John mentioned it, I mentioned it. So we have Climate Ready Groton, which is our climate action plan. That's basically, if you go onto the Greater Groton site, you'll actually see the information. That's also where you can take the quick polls. But we do have our first public event for that. It's going to be Popsicles in the Park. That is scheduled for September 18th. At 5:30 p.m. There's going to be some great boards there asking for questions about different climate issues and whatnot, and we are looking for feedback. So stay tuned. You'll see some information as that gets advertised and whatnot, and we hope to see you there as well. But thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon.